So for quite some time now, I've been developing a talk on equanimity as part of the turns out to be longer than I thought, series on 5 kinds of happiness. This is talk number 19 in the series. So it was very clear that a talk on equanimity would be the next talk. And one thing led to another, and it just kept getting delayed and okay, not this time, but next time. And so anyway, so here we are. And equanimity is an invitation to learn in everyday living, to tune into balance and peace, to be nourished and sustained by balance and peace, to live a life of joyfulness no matter what the circumstances. Everything is workable. It is what we have taken form to learn. And isn't it interesting that today, with all that's going on in the world, there is a talk on equanimity, balance and peace, no matter what the circumstances. And indeed, this is part 1. It turns out that there will be 2 parts to this. And guess when the next part lands? That would be November 5th. So it would appear that this was when it wanted to happen. It just happened that way because I'll be talking again before then, but we have another program scheduled for that night. So November 5th on election night. So equanimity. Huh? No,
It's not always November 5th.
it's the second, I guess it's the first Tuesday,
We separate that and Sky Hawks Night.
Oh, right, that's right.
Which I thought is really apt.
There we are, that too, yes, no. Equanimity is understanding what it means to stand in the midst of all experience with unshakable balance, to be responsive yet unbroken. So equanimity. We've talked about different kinds of happiness. And the most recent series is on what's called Deva happiness, which is the Brahma Viharas. Loving kindness, which is a heart of affection for all beings. Compassion, which is a tender heart, opening in care for the suffering of the world. All beings suffer, things change, it's hard. Compassion for all beings. Sympathetic joy, a delight in the goodness of life. And now equanimity. As the Buddha taught all of his teachings, as you well know, that he always taught the middle path. And so it's important to kind of remember with all of these Brahma Viharas also that, first of all, they're not a thing that we're trying to kind of get to be stable, so now I have to put this out there to those people that don't have it or something like that. That's not how it works. It's really about tuning into these fundamental qualities of our deepest being and living from that place. Metta, as unconditional kindness, loving kindness, protects compassion from being directed only at particular kinds of suffering. Don't you like this here? By particular people. So the practice of loving kindness is extending goodwill and good wishes to all beings in all circumstances. Cultivating a heart of kindness and care. And that includes all beings out there, and it also includes all aspects of this being internally. How do we cultivate kindness to all aspects of this human experience? Sympathetic joy keeps us from wallowing in suffering. cultivating qualities of joy. It allows us to be nourished by the also goodness and wholesome accomplishments of other aspects and other beings in this world. So sympathetic joy, one of the Brahma Viharas. Compassion prevents love, kindness, and sympathetic joy from being romantic, enabling, or overly dramatic, and prevents a forgetting of the true suffering of the world, offering suffering that we cannot prevent. Compassion, opening to suffering, often suffering that we cannot prevent or fix. This is a quote, sort of, I've juggled it a little bit, from Ajahn Sucitto. Compassion is the sensitivity to the vulnerability of beings who get damaged, who change, who experience sickness and death, and the wish to ameliorate that pain, the wish to care for that pain. Compassion is a natural quality of the deepest aspects of the heart. In the heart, we can easily fulfill these Brahma Viharas, but once we move into the realm of the senses and other humans, we cannot always act. And even if we act, we cannot always fix things. You know, this pew that I was contemplating is going to change tomorrow, and in 100 years will be different, no matter how many times I vacuum it or polish it. So there are things that we can't fix or change, or that we can't fix, so that we can't always do something. And if we can't fulfill that doing, it doesn't mean we can't experience being touched by it and having an open heart. And Sucitto says, imagine what it would be like to live with a closed heart to all of the tenderness and vulnerability and suffering in the world. Ouch. What is it like? And isn't it true that our own suffering is caused when we try to hold on to things that are unhold-on-able? So equanimity is cultivating, is an encouragement to rest in the happiness, the mental calmness, the composure and balance and peace that is our birthright. We are invited to learn, to remember really in everyday practice, to tune into that peace, to be nourished and sustained by it, and to live a life of joyfulness no matter what the circumstances. Everything is workable. It's what we have taken form to learn. I was blessed because I was really working with this practice so much. The night of the debate, well, I only navigated 17 minutes of it, but I was able to, through a number of contemplations, was able to just be with, okay, well, let's see. Let's see. I was listening to a commentator today, CNN commentator was talking about, is this good or bad? And it's like, well, let's see. And so equanimity is the capacity to kind of be in the middle of what's happening without kind of insisting that we have to push or pull. There used to be a saying during the Vietnam War, I guess it was, push or pull or get out of the way. And I always thought get out of the way was the best response. That really the question of action the invitation is for the question of action to come from our being, not from our concept about what needs to be, but from these qualities of care and kindness. So that any action that is coming forward really comes out of a deeper place and not out of the pushing or pulling, the insistence that life be what we think it's supposed to be. I have a favorite poem. Oh, goodness. I have a lot of favorite poems, but a favorite poem. And the first two lines are, the title of the poem is about peace. And it says, she says, Dorothy Hunt, she says, do you think peace requires an end to war? Or tigers eating only vegetables? I just love that. What comes up for you when you hear that? Do you think peace requires an end to war, or tigers eating only vegetables? When I think about it, my response is, yeah. Anybody, what hits you when you hear this talking, even as I just begin to talk about equanimity and standing in the midst of all of this and all this CNN, and I was supposed to do something for Jean today, and instead I listened to CNN. I told you, sorry, Jean, I didn't do my homework. What comes up for you when you think about equanimity? Do you think peace requires an end to war? Are tigers eating only vegetables? Oh,
At the risk of hogging the mic,
there we go.
as a scientist, you look at the evolution of the cosmos, then the Earth, and it's violent and it's scary, and species get eliminated left and right, and the whole thing gets wiped out and reforms and rebuilds, and then humans just went through a bottleneck where we almost didn't survive as a species. And so it's just the way it was set up. It's sort of a violent competition to stay alive and to thrive. And so how can we expect there to be everybody be peaceful and tigers to eat vegetables?
Yeah.
No, it wasn't set up that way. So equanimity is you have to accept that's the way the game or the earth or this wonderful sort of unfolding works.
Yeah. Thank you. I hadn't really, so kind of stepping back there, I mean, you just stepped back to a very wide lens. Yeah. Anybody else? Yeah, Dina.
Thank you. When I think about that, a lot comes up. And when I think of peace, I personally think of it as something worthwhile. So maybe you could say an aspiration. And when I think about, you alluded to some of the things that are going on, and I think about people in terms of evolution. Tigers are relatively fixed in their behaviors. We have the capacity to change, to evolve, and I'm pulled in the direction of feeling optimistic that there can be more peace. So I don't know if I'm completely equanimous,
Mhm.
but I love the message.
So it's kind of an interesting concept. I mean, as you say, I don't, love the message, and then it brings up, thank you, Dina, because it certainly does for me as well, bring up questions, because then we could say, well, equanimity means we just go eat cookies, the world's going to end anyway, so there's just going to be this big explosion or something, and tigers are going to eat, one another, and so we just go eat cookies and forget about it all. So we could kind of go in the direction of inactivity. Again, the Buddha is speaking of balance in the midst of all this, and so I was like, how do we find this balance thing? Well, again, let's remember that balance is never a thing. It's just we're always out of balance. You've heard me say, one of my movement teachers one time reminded us, that when I am walking, I am always out of balance. I fall over this way and then I correct it and I fall over that way. And, it's the thing that when the little babies are learning, they're just learning balance in the midst of all that movement. Anybody on Zoom have anything to add there? No? So do you think peace requires an end to war or tigers eating only vegetables? The couple of operative words that strike me is, do you think peace requires this? And the other word that really struck me is requires. Does peace require an end to war? And I think that's kind of what you're wondering about, Dina. Does peace require an end to war? Or is there a quality of peace that doesn't require an end to war, that doesn't require my politician to win the debate? Can I still go to sleep and be at peace? Does it require tigers eating only vegetables, or is there a quality of equanimity that is deeper than that? This is Christina Feldman. She says, equanimity is understanding what it means. And I think she's talking about more than understanding, mental understanding, is understanding what it means to stand in the midst of all experience with unshakable balance, to be responsive yet unbroken. So I'd like to invite another contemplation. Is there anything for you personally in either your internal world or the external world with which it's hard to cultivate and maintain equanimity, and with which it's hard to stand in the midst of that experience with unshakable balance, being responsive yet unbroken? Is there anything in your world? I see some of the faces, they are really fun. Anybody want to say anything? Is there anything that you find difficult to have equanimity about? Stop laughing at me. What? Do you want to offer one? Because it will be something that somebody else is thinking.
Oh, well, it may or may not be. In my internal life, I've been lately, and for quite a while, struggling, as you know, with interminable headaches. And I've been doing my best to practice being a host to the headaches. It is a challenging practice, and I don't find that I have unshakable balance.
Yes.
There are times I am in the depths of not despair, but
Yes.
catastrophizing, perhaps. Maybe it's something dire, there is occasionally equanimity.
That's
It
right.
is not unshakable.
Um, as I said, do I think peace require? Yes, I do, Yeah. One of the ways that we can have equanimity is to have equanimity around not having equanimity. It's the arising of this, in that case, I think you're describing a mind state, huh? Well, physical experience, sensory experience, and a mind state with which you don't have equanimity. Can I have equanimity around not having equanimity? As Dina was saying, can I have equanimity around not completely buying this whole thing about equanimity? Can I have equanimity about that?
Double up on the pressure.
With the idea, and that actually, thank you, because that's really important. Because the pressure comes from trying to make it a thing. I should have loving kindness. I should have compassion. I should be this way. And if I were, it would look like this. So what you just said is really important because we do that with our mind. We keep trying to make things. So then equanimity becomes a thing that we're supposed to be. But remember the contemplation we did at the very beginning, that everything is a lot more fluid than that. So, maybe the inquiry into equanimity invites, as much as anything in our practice, that quality of curiosity and investigation. What? It just doesn't seem doable. And can I have equanimity around maybe this teaching is wrong, Maybe it is. Dalai Lama has said if science proves the Buddhist teachings wrong, then we should believe science. Maybe it's wrong. But maybe it isn't, So can we have some equanimity around this unpleasant experience, both an unpleasant bodily experience and the unpleasant experience of non-equanimity? I will tell you that the night of the what was that thing? Debate. As I was blessed with a moment of equanimity, it sure felt better. Recognizing that there was absolutely nothing I could do about any of it. And that my not sleeping was not going to help anything. So it was just, and I was like, this is what the absence of suffering feels like. That was fun. Doesn't last necessarily, but it's doable. So one of the ways that we practice equanimity is by also noticing where we don't have equanimity. Anybody else want to make any comments about? Yes.
I'm up for embarrassing myself with this example. I was trying to renew a prescription today. And then you listen to this recording, it goes on, and you do all these things. And then they ask you something, and one of the things was my phone number, and I said my phone number, and then this voice says, you're saying blah, blah, blah. And I go, no. The voice says, would you like to enter this again? And I go, and the voice said something else. So finally I call the number and get the pharmacy. And then she says to me, well, it's not renewable. And it says here, Dr. So-and-so did this on such and such a date. I said, I've never seen Dr. So-and-so. She said, well, I'm sure you did. I know I did not see Dr. So-and-so. So finally I calmed down and I thanked her for trying to help me. And as I was leaving the house tonight to come here, I'm talking to myself and I'm saying, well, that was a nice little temper tantrum. It's like a 10-year-old that we were doing it.
Yeah.
But there was a little bit of equanimity in noticing.
In noticing that was
This
a little temp.
2-year-old.
That's right. That's right. Actually, I have one very similar. I used to, in my old house, I had Comcast as a carrier, and our whole system went out, and I listened to the recording and I did everything the recording told me to do, and it didn't work. And so I was trying to call and get to an agent. And I got to the recording again, and it said, before we send you to an agent, I want you to do this. And I went, and it's like, Mary did that, and I know it doesn't work. And so I said, agent. And the recording says, before we send you to an agent. And so we went through that several times, at which point I am screaming at the computer. And the ridiculousness of it did not escape me, but nevertheless, it's like, I did not have equanimity about that. Because, and then the computer just said, it just said, well, goodbye. Because I wouldn't do what the computer told me to do. Anyway, so I did not have equanimity about that. Yeah. Chrissy, hold on.
I quite rarely had equanimity in the past. Really, I'm quite an anxious person. But I've been learning it through other practices over the years. And for example, today I came back and I changed my training practice from 1 o'clock to 4 o'clock, and at 1:30, because I had other commitments, 1:30, I got a message from my trainer saying, you've missed your appointment, so we'll have to charge you for it. And I was like, it's 4 o'clock, and I couldn't get through to him. And then I thought, right, I better get in the car, I better go and see him, because I don't now know whether it's going to be 4 o'clock or not. And I got in the car, and for like only for the first minute, less than that, I was like quite anxious. And then I was like, everything's fine, it doesn't matter. And I went and I was really cheerful to him. And I said, we changed it to 4. And he said, no, we didn't. And I said, here's the email. And he said, he's very sorry, but he could see me at 4. But I could have had,
yes,
in the past, I used to have a lot of needless
anxiety. Yeah.
Insanity. Yeah.
Yes. And we all do, you think about my angst yelling at the Comcast computer didn't really accomplish a lot, and the suffering that we experience when it's hard to step back in the way that Dave is speaking of. And maybe we don't have to step back to the beginning of time, but to step back a bit. It's 25 after 7. Thank you. It's sometime. It's 25 after 8. Thank you very much. And so I'm going to continue this auspiciously enough on November 5th. And so we've talked just a little bit about equanimity. And so a couple of practices I will leave you with, and then we'll talk more about cultivating states of mind and heart that support us in a practice of equanimity. We might need them on November 5th. So the first practice we've spoken of, that you see what's happening. You see what's happening. You see with it, you see it with a mind that understands it's like this now. And that's what we did in our contemplation at the beginning. It's like this now. Things are impermanent, caused by infinite causes and conditions, which we will never know. Huh? We'll just never know all the different causes and conditions that led to that confusion. So we cultivate the capacity to see it's like this now, with a bit of perspective. Again, maybe we don't have to be quite as far back as the beginning of time, but that is a very helpful perspective. But we can step back, and see what isn't helpful right now. It's not helpful right now for me to be screaming at the computer. I just thought, somebody someplace had to listen to that. Where's this mad woman? But that we step back a bit and look at things from a somewhat larger perspective. You see that it arises, whatever is happening right now arises from infinite causes and conditions. It's impermanent. Somehow or other it will change. You see what's needed, what's possible, and what is yours to do. And, that night at the debate, looking at what's needed and what's possible and what is mine to do really helped. And sometimes it invites us to kind of get really big, and sometimes it invites us to get really very small. Ajahn Suchita says, the more the heart is developed, then a greater capacity to access and manifest this particular quality. Not losing oneself in other people's karma. So let me finish. I'll read the rest of the poem, and then we'll continue on the 5th. Do you think peace requires an end to war, or tigers eating only vegetables? Does peace require an absence from your boss, your spouse, yourself? Do you think peace will come some other place than here? Some other time than now? In some other heart than yours? Peace is this moment without judgment. That is all. This moment in the heart space where everything that is welcome. Peace is this moment without thinking that it should be some other way, that you should feel some other thing, that your life should unfold according to your plans. Peace is this moment without judgment, this moment in the heart space where everything that is, this moment where everything that is welcome. And she doesn't say, but only then can we have any idea, any clue what is ours to do next. So equanimity, may we have an opportunity to practice equanimity between now and November 5th, just in case. So blessings to you each. I just want to remind you, I meant to do this before the second part, to consider dana, some financial offering. It costs us a fair amount of money to be here on Tuesday nights, to be gifted with Brianna and her guidance and technical support. So any offering that you might make out there or online, you can go on the website and make offerings there. So thank you for that. And then, may all beings in every direction be filled with goodness and kindness. May all beings, regardless of their circumstances, have freedom from suffering. May all beings have hearts that are full of peace and joy. May all beings be happy. Our practices for all beings over time, everywhere. We become one of those infinite causes and conditions. Huh? Little mosquito flying around. So blessings to you each. May we practice happily.